Hey folks, the push to 318 has been a long one due to some big new features like salvage, soft death, persistence, the cargo refactor, and the inventory move all button, among many others. But it also came with a change to ballistic shield penetration that promised to change the way we load out our ships. Or did it? Let's get into it. Initially, 318 promised to make ballistics more viable by increasing how much ballistic damage ignores shields and does damage directly to a ship's hull. This shield penetration has always been a feature of ballistics, but they still saw limited usage due to their low ammo counts. In patch 3.14, the ammo was drastically reduced when weapon capacitors were introduced, so that smaller ballistic gatlings and repeaters only have 16 seconds of fire time before they run out of ammo, and ballistic cannons and larger ballistic gatlings have between 53 seconds and 2 minutes of fire time before running out of ammo. This ammo trade-off was supposed to balance the fact that ballistics didn't take any weapon capacitor, which would give any remaining energy weapons more ammo in their magazines, or would let you run more power to shields or thrusters. The problem is that it made ballistics unviable for bounty hunting outside of the 80 series gatlings or cannon-based fits. So to make them more attractive, SIG increased their shield penetration in 3.18. In 3.17, between 2% and 50% of ballistic damage went through the shields, and in 3.18 they've increased that to between 70% and 100%. That means if you shoot ballistics at someone in 3.18 and their shields are fully up, 70% of your damage ignores the shield and damages the hull directly, and that number increases to 100% as the shields go down. It's worth noting that these penetration values are actually attached to the shield components, not the guns, so this means that since missiles also do physical damage, which is the ballistic damage type, all of this applies to missile damage as well. That created a new problem, which you can see in this footage of me absolutely destroying VHRT-level ships in a comically quick time using ballistics. Without the proper armor mechanics in-game, giving shields that much physical damage penetration skewed the balance to a place where basically everyone would always want to run ballistics, removing player choice. You couldn't really pass up the ability to quickly take out your opponent because if one of the enemy's wingmen had ballistics, you were also on the clock as their ballistic shots would be steadily chipping away at your hull too. There were multiple fights where I'd lose wings and guns without my shields ever going down. So to combat this problem that they've created that absolutely no one could have foreseen, SIG responded by faking ship armor in the game by increasing the physical damage reduction stat on ship hulls that already exist in the game. Most ships in 3.17 had a physical damage reduction somewhere between 0 and 10%. This was increased in the 3.18 PTU to be between 50 and 60%, which means that all ballistic weapons and missiles would do full damage to shields, but only about 40 to 50% of their damage to ship hulls. This has definitely adjusted the overall performance of ballistics to be similar to where we had them in 3.17, and perhaps even be worse for bounty hunting than they were before. In my testing of fully ballistic loadouts against VHRT-level enemies with the higher physical damage resistance in the 3.18 PTU, the kill times felt no better than what they are in 3.17. Even though most of your ballistic damage is penetrating the enemy shields, the fact that it's taking you at least twice as long to kill the hull with ballistics means that you'll fire a lot more shots at the enemy, which will typically take down their shields anyway. If we could just take a look at the Vanguard Warden as an example VHRT target. They have about 10,000 body and nose HP each, and about the same in front and rear shields each. If you fire a shot doing 100 physical damage at a Warden with full shields, the shields will absorb 30 damage while letting 70 damage pass through. Since the hull is 50% physical damage reduction, it only takes 35 damage. So while the shields are high, the shields in the hull are taking very similar amounts of damage. Now let's say the shields are at half strength, and you fire another shot doing 100 physical damage at the Warden. Since the shield absorption is tied to shield strength, and it varies between 30% and 0%, shields at half strength will only absorb half of the damage, or 15 physical damage, while letting the other 85 pass through. This ends up doing 42.5 damage to the hull due to the physical damage resistance, which is about 3 times what the shields took. But now your initial shot of 100 physical damage is still doing only 42 damage to the ship's hull, and it's still chipping away at the enemy shields. Since you never perfectly focus all of your fire in the same spot on the enemy, you're very likely to get the enemy shields very low by the time you've done enough damage to the enemy hull to kill them. What I think this means for hybrid loadouts is that they probably won't make a lot of sense to run in 3.18, since the ballistics won't be good at taking the shield down, and they won't be good at quickly destroying the hulls once the shields are down. If you contrast this with laser weapons, they have a lower overall DPS, but ship shields and hulls take almost full damage from the lasers, and you don't need to have any range anxiety about your ammo running out. The one thing I think could still keep fully ballistic loadouts in the running for bounty hunting is the infinite size 2 shield bug, where if you shoot at the bounty target with a size 2 shield from the front, it registers the damage to the back shields and not to the hull. I didn't encounter this issue in the 318 PTU with fully ballistic loadouts, but I'm pretty sure I still saw it happen with lasers. The other thing I want to touch on is the fact that even with high physical damage shield penetration, shields are still going to be very useful for bounty hunting. The main VHRT-level targets don't have ballistic damage, so your shields are still important, but the smaller wingmen like the Gladius and the Buccaneers do use ballistics, so you'll still have to keep an eye on your hull. Overall, I think I understand the direction that SIG is trying to move ballistics into. I think they're trying to make ballistics the weapon you want to use when you want to tactically disable ships by destroying their components. That's why ballistic damage mostly ignores shields, but then doesn't do a lot of damage to the ship hull itself. It does make me sad because I think it's probably making them even less viable for bounty hunting, but perhaps that will change more when bounty hunting functionality comes out where we might actually need to take targets alive. It also makes me wonder how this new ballistic rule contrasts against distortion. Distortion also disables ships and can allow boarding, but it doesn't destroy the components. So perhaps distortion is better for piracy when you can take the entire ship, and ballistics might be better for a future state of bounty hunting where you don't care about the state of the ship as long as you get your mark. For 318 though, this makes me a bit sad because I feel like it's pushing ballistics further out of the realm of usability. I think adding a considerable ammo buff to ballistic weapons, given the huge hull damage reduction, would help bring them back into contention now, but SIG hasn't made any ballistic changes for a few weeks, so they might have settled on this state. Testing in the PTU has been challenging because every new PTU build completely wipes all your bounty hunting reputation, and new builds are still coming, so check the pinned comment just in case things change since I made this video. That's all I've got for the 318 PTU's ballistic changes for now, folks. Thanks for watching. I hope you've liked this video. Cheers.